The Coffee House of Surat by Leo Tolstoy. Translated into English by Louise Maud. Adapted by The Quiet of the Land. Before the magical world of the internet and electricity, a coffee house existed in Surat, India, where travelers and foreigners worldwide met and conversed. One day, a learned Persian theologian visited this coffee house. He had spent his life studying the nature of deity and reading and writing books on the subject. He had thought, read, and written so much about God that eventually he lost his wits, became quite confused, and ceased even to believe in the existence of God. The Shah, hearing of this, exiled him from Persia. After having argued all his life about the first cause, this unfortunate theologian perplexed himself. Instead of understanding that he had lost his reason, he began to think that there was no reason controlling the universe. He had a slave who followed him everywhere. When the theologian entered the coffee house, the slave remained outside but near the door, sitting on a stone in the sun's glare and driving away the flies that buzzed around him. The Persian ordered a cup of potent tea and settled on a couch. When he had drunk it and had reached his brain, he addressed his slave through the open door. "Tell me, slave," said he, "do you think there is a God?" "Sir, of course there is," said the slave, immediately drawing a small wooden idol from his jacket. "There," said he, "that is the God who has guarded me from the day of my birth. Everyone in our country worships the totem tree. This God was made from that tree and that wood. It binds me to my home." The other guests in the coffee house listened to the theologian and his slave's conversation with astonishment. They were surprised by the master's question, and more so by the slave's reply. One of them, a Brahmin Hindu, on hearing the words spoken by the slave, turned and said, "Is it possible you believe that God can be carried in a person's jacket? There is God, Brahma, who is greater than the whole world, for he created it. Brahma is the ultimate reality, and in his honor, temples are built on the Ganges banks, where his priests, the Brahmins, worship him. 1,000 scores of years have passed, yet these priests have held their sway through revolution after revolution, because Brahma has protected them." So spoke the Brahmin, thinking to convince everyone. But a Jewish man, who was present, replied to him and said, "No, the temple of the true God is not in India. The true God is not the God of the Brahmins, but of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He protects his chosen people, the Israelites, from the foundation of the world. Our nation has been beloved of him, and ours alone. If we are scattered over the whole earth, it is but to test us. For God has promised that he will one day gather his people together in Jerusalem, with the temple of Jerusalem restored to its splendor." So spoke the Jew emotionally. He wished to say more, but an Italian missionary interrupted him. "That is untrue," said he. "You attribute injustice to God. God cannot love your nation above the rest. No, rather, even if it be true that of old God favored the Israelites, it is now 1900 years since their nation was scattered over the earth. Yet their faith makes few converts. God favors no nation, but calls all who wish to be saved to the bosom of the Roman Catholic Church." A Protestant minister, growing pale, turned to the Catholic missionary and exclaimed, "How can you say that salvation belongs to your religion? Only those who believe in God by faith alone and follow the doctrines of the Holy Bible will be saved." Then a Turk, an office holder in the custom house of Surat, with authority, sitting in the coffee house smoking a pipe, started with an air of superiority. "Belief in your old religions is in vain," said he. "It was superseded 1200 years ago by the true faith, that of Muhammad, praise be unto him. You cannot but observe how the true Muslim faith continues to spread worldwide, even in the enlightened country of China. None will be saved but the followers of Muhammad, praise be unto him, and to them only Omar's followers and not Ali's, for the latter's a false to the faith." To this, the Persian theologians of the sect of Ali wished to reply, but a great dispute had arisen amongst the strangers of different faiths and beliefs. There were Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, animists, and atheists. They all argued about the nature or existence of God, and if God existed, how God should be worshipped. Each asserted that correct belief was known in their country alone. Everyone argued and shouted, except a student of Confucius from China, who sat quietly in one corner of the coffee house, listening, but staying silent. The Turk noticed him, sitting there, and appealed to him, saying, "You can confirm what I say, my friend from China. You hold peace, but I know you would confirm my opinions if you spoke. Traders from your country who come to me for assistance tell me that though many religions have been introduced into China, you consider Islam the best of all, and many adopt it. Confirm then my words, and tell us your opinion." "Yes, yes," said the rest, turning to the student. "Let us hear what you think." The student of Confucius closed his eyes and thought silently for a while. When he opened them, he drew his hand out of his garment and spoke calmly and quietly. "Sirs, it seems to me that chiefly pride prevents humans from agreeing with one another on matters of belief. If you care to listen, I will tell you a story, explaining this by example. I came here from China on an English steamer traveling the world. We stopped for fresh water and landed on the island of Sumatra. It was midday, and some of us, having landed, sat in the shade of the coconut palms by the seashore, not far from a native village. We were a party of different nationalities and beliefs. As we sat there, a blind man approached us from the village. We learned afterwards that he had gone blind from gazing too long and too insistently at the sun, trying to figure out what it was so that he could seize the sun's light. He strove a long time to achieve this, continually looking at the sun, but its brightness incapacitated his eyes and eventually blinded him. Then he said to himself, the sun's light is not a liquid. If it were a liquid, pouring it from one vessel into another would be possible. Neither is it fire, for if it were fire, water would extinguish it. Neither is it light. Neither is a light a spirit, for it is seen by the eye, nor is it matter, for it cannot be moved. Therefore, the sun's light is neither liquid, fire, spirit, or matter. It is nothing. So he argued, losing both sight and reason, because he had always looked at the sun and thought about it, and went totally blind. Convinced the sun did not exist. The blind man had a slave, who, after placing his master in the shade of a coconut tree, picked up a coconut from the ground and began making a nightlight. He twisted a wick from the fibre of the coconut, squeezing oil from the nut of the shell and soaking the wick in it. As the slave sat doing this, the blind man sighed and said to him, "Well, slave, Was I not right when I told you there is no sun? Do you not see how dark it is? Yet people say there is a light. But if so, what is it? I do not know what the sun is, said the slave. That is no business of mine. But I know what light is. Here, I have made a night light, by the help of which I can serve you and find anything in your hut. And the slave picked up the coconut shell, saying, This is my sun. A farmer who was sitting nearby heard these words and laughed. You have evidently been blind all your life, he said to the blind man, not to know what the sun is. I tell you what the sun is. The sun is a ball of fire which rises every morning out of the sea and goes down again amongst the mountains of our island in the evening. We have all seen it. If you had your eyesight, you too would have seen it. A fisherman, who had begun listening to the conversation, said, It's plain enough, sir, that you have never been beyond your island. If you had been, as I have, in a fishing boat, you would know that the sun does not set amongst the mountains of our island, but as it rises from the ocean every morning, so it sets again in the sea every night. What I tell you is true, for I see it daily with my own eyes. Then an Indian who was of our party interrupted him, saying, I am astonished that a reasonable man should talk such nonsense. How can a ball of fire possibly descend into the water and not be extinguished? The sun is not a ball of fire, it is the deity Deva, who rides forever in a chariot around the golden mountain Meru. Sometimes the evil serpents, Rahu and Ketu, attack Deva and swallow him, and the earth is dark. But our priests pray that the deity may be released, and he is set free. Only such ignorant people as you, who have never been beyond their island, can imagine that the sun shines for their country alone. Then the master of an Egyptian vessel spoke. No, said he, you are all wrong. The sun is not a deity and does not move around India and its golden mountains. I have sailed on the Black Sea, along the coasts of Arabia and Madagascar. The sun lights the whole earth, and not India alone. It does not circle one mountain, but rises far in the east, beyond the Isles of Japan, and sets far, far away in the west, beyond the Isles of England. That is why the Japanese call their country Nippon. That is the birth of the sun. I know this well, for I have seen much and heard more from my grandfather, who sailed to the very ends of the earth. He would have gone on, but an English sailor from our ship interrupted him. There is no country, he said arrogantly, where people know so much about the sun's movements as in England. The sun, as everyone in England knows, rises and sets nowhere. It is always moving around the earth. We can be sure, as we have just been around the world, and nowhere knocked up against the sun. Wherever we went, the sun showed itself in the morning and hid itself at night, just as it does here. The Englishman took a stick, and drawing a circle on the sand, tried to explain how the sun moves in the heavens and goes around the world. But he was unable to explain it, and pointed to the ship's pilot and said, This man knows more about it than I do. He can explain it correctly. The pilot, who was a knowledgeable man, had listened in silence to the talk till he was asked to speak. Now everyone turned to him, and he said, You are all rather misleading one another, and are rather yourselves deceived. The sun does not go around the earth. The earth goes around the sun, revolving and turning toward it every 24 hours, not only in Japan and Sumatra, where we are now, but in every land. The sun does not shine for some mountain, one island, sea, or even one planet alone, but for other planets and our earth. If you would only stop your chatter, look up, and silently contemplate the heavens, you might understand this and no longer suppose that the sun shines for us as for one country or for one people alone. Thus spoke the wise pilot, who had voyaged much around the world, and he gazed long upon the firmament above. So on matters of belief, continued the student from China, pride causes error and discord amongst humans. As with the sun, so it is with God. Each person wants a unique God, or at least a special God for their native land. Each nation wishes to confine God to its temples, whom the world cannot contain. Can any temple compare with the creation which God has built to unite all humankind in devotion and awe? All human temples are built on the model of this temple, which is God's world. Every temple has fonts, vaulted roofs, lamps, pictures or sculptures, inscriptions, books, offerings, altars and priests. But in what temple is there such a font as the ocean, such a vault as the heavens, such lamps as the sun, moon and stars, or any statues comparable with living, loving people? Where is there any book of the law so clear to each person as that written in the human heart? What sacrifices equal the self-denials which the loving men and women make for one another? And what altar can compare with the heart of a good person, on which God accepts sacrificial self-love? The higher a person's conception of God, the better they will know they cannot understand God. When we seek to see the image of God in each other, we will be nearer to God, to goodness, mercy, and love, and if God exists, certainly nearer to God. Therefore, let the one who sees the sun's whole light filling the world refrain from blaming or despising the superstitious person who in his idol sees one ray of that same sun. Let us not despise even the one who cannot see the sun, for we all see by the light we are given. Let us be thankful for our light and willingly share it. God is not found in our different beliefs, but in our united search for love and light in one another. May our God be all light, all truth, and all goodness. So spoke the student, and all in the coffee house were silent, and no one disputed whose belief was the best.